All right, folks, welcome back to another special episode of Aerial Perspectives. Today, we're flying that. That is a Saturn V rocket at the U.S. Space and Rocket Center here in Huntsville, Alabama. Chantry is going to be our pilot today, and we're going to interview him after this flight. So come take a look at the behind the scenes and see what it's like to dive a Saturn V rocket with an FPV drone. Let's go. Well, that was pretty cool, bud.
Yeah, it was.
I tell you, it's not every day you get to dive a Saturn V rocket.
No, not at all. It was definitely a unique experience for sure.
Well, we want to certainly take a moment to thank the folks over at Visit Alabama for having us out on that amazing shoot. It was certainly something that ended up producing a really nice looking commercial as well, which we'll show y'all in this video. But yeah, Chantry Holdman, everyone, part of the Rocket Drones team, Pelican Drones team, and all things drone professional. If you want to give us a little insight into how you got into this.
Well, honestly, I got into RC helicopters and planes as a small kid. And then I served in the Marine Corps as a 0481 landing support specialist. And part of that job was to hang out on helicopters and do external lifts with them. And my love for helicopters really grew. Around a re-enlistment time, I tried to re-enlist and switch over to the Marine Corps drone program. And unfortunately, because I was a sergeant, they wouldn't allow me to move over into that program. And so I said, okay, well, I'm just going to do it on my own. And ever since then, 2010, I've been flying drones and multi-rotors.
That's super cool. I know a lot of folks in the military think it's kind of just the Predator drones only, but now we're in a whole new chapter of all sorts of applications, from surveillance to weaponry to you name it, clearing landmines off of a field. It's got multiple uses. But did you start in the military? Did it just pique your interest there? Where did it go from there?
It was just a passion of mine. I've always been an aviation fan. So ultimately, I just kind of cling to it naturally because I couldn't be a jet pilot at that time. And so drones is what gave me that freedom to go ahead and fly like a bird.
So we started on small little RC helicopters, small. When did like your first actual quadcopter come into play?
Right at 2010, yeah. So,
yep. And was it the same kind of control pattern as the RC helicopters, or where else did you get familiar with?
Yeah, all the control schematics are the same. You still have pitch, you have roll, yaw, and thrust. Ultimately, it was this exact same Mode 2 configuration for the control layout. And then ultimately, it felt very similar because multi-rotor drones and coaxial and, fixed pitch style helicopters all fly the same. And so it was very natural just moving right into it from helicopters.
Do you get any help from the video game world at all?
Oh, absolutely. Mostly Battlefield.
Yeah.
That's where it all really kicked in with Battlefield 3 on the PlayStation 3. That's probably one of the best games ever made, I think.
Yeah. I was right there with you. I think that a lot of drone pilots, if you referenced that, or at least some that have been flying for some time, I should rephrase, but we all had kind of had a moment in some of the games that either exposed us to similar control patterns as the drones, or somewhat, easy to adapt from there. But what about, did you first get into an actual flying quadcopter? What was that, first chapter? Was it a toy? Was it a real deal big drone? What was it?
Yeah, it was actually a really small drone. I think at the time it only had like a 2 or maybe 1 axis gyro in it, and it was fully enclosed. It was called a Skywalker. It was like in this little cage, And in the very first, I would fly it and I'd crash it over and over again. So I was very thankful it had a full cage on it. But when I got better at it, I went ahead and clipped the cage off and was able to lose some weight on it. So it was much more agile and nimble. It didn't have any type of position hold or anything else. It was just, I'm going to stay stable and fly stable, but you're in full control. There's no, hover in position. So it was quite drifty at all times. So you had to learn how to counteract. And basically it's like being out in space with like one of those EVA packs. When you shoot thrust this way, you've got to shoot thrust back this way in order to stop.
Yeah. There's no brakes in the air, huh?
Absolutely not.
Well, that's really cool. Did you find yourself kind of naturally leaning towards this newfound, love of flying the drones towards, commercial? Like, how did it ultimately connect back over to commercial opportunities?
I've seen a lot of commercial capabilities. At the time after I got out of the military, I worked as a screen printer, and I also did oil field. And part of one of the things I did when I developed a DJI F450, I mean, that's pretty much where we all started, unless you started out on a Phantom or something. I would map the oil site and then create a 3D print of it. I would bring a printer with me and I would give that to the company man. And they're like, "You just did that?" I'm like, "Yeah." This drone technology is really cool, isn't it? It could be quite helpful, in trying to sell it and trying to figure out where it fits into commercial industry. Because during that time, it wasn't legal for us to be doing anything commercial. It wasn't until like 2016 that they really opened it up, unless you had your actual pilot's license.
Yeah, no, that was an evolving chapter of regulations, but it's interesting you bring up kind of helping to paint the picture for the potential business use cases that, one might hire you for, whether it's a photo of the job site or a scan of the 3D assets on site, or real estate for sale. I'm sure it started to really paint the picture nicely. What happened after, oil field side of things? Where did it go from there?
I moved over to Pensacola, Florida. As a matter of fact, contacted you right when I got here. And after that, we kind of, some of my friends, we got together and we created a drone racing program here in the city of Pensacola. We were quite successful in the first 3 years. And then I went ahead and just got busier and busier with my commercial drone work. So moved on from that and got into the whole wide world of commercialized operations. And then, the rest is history. I mean, we're here at Rocket Drones because of it all. So.
Yeah. It's kind of crazy how it feels like yesterday. Some of this stuff was just getting started. And you've been big on the building and design side of things. I think there was a cool project that comes to mind with spray drone for vegetation that was growing on a hotel exterior in New Orleans. You want to bring us up to speed on that one too? That was a fun one.
That was very interesting. You had a client, as a matter of fact, that wanted to kill plants that were going on the side of their building there. And we only wanted to do it with like a Phantom. So the payload was very small. It was probably about the size of a can of Coke.
Yeah.
About 12 ounces of fluid. It flew not very well due to the shiftment of the water inside. But ultimately, it did spray, and it would have done the job with the skilled pilot behind it. But I think they found it a little bit easier at the time to just send somebody over on a rope.
Yeah, well, it's amazing to see the ability to take an idea, bring it to life with 3D printers, design, a little bit of parts from another world of
Walmart.
Yeah, exactly.
Got the spraying system and apparatus from the bug spraying type, and then I modified it to be radio controlled. And so then I could just spray it, and it had its own little pumping system all built in. It screwed right onto the Phantom, and it was just a little modular package. It was pretty good.
Yeah, I think that's the one of the keys to your pathways of success is that you said yes a lot along the way of building things and flying missions. And I want to say there was a unique one when it comes to disaster response that you also got to be preview to. What was that? Hurricane.
It was Matthew or Michael. It confuses
Michael, I
me
believe.
so much too still today, but it was over there in Bay County of Florida. Worked directly under Bay County EOC, the Emergency Operations Command Center, and the Florida State University and Florida UAS group. And basically, we got parachuted in to do disaster response, route clearance, and then ultimately we mapped all of Mexico Beach where the storm actually made landfall to do mapping studies. And then our data ended up on the USAA website, and it was really cool to be part of. Yeah.
Yeah, that is, I'm sure, a different scenario of now you're going into a disaster site that doesn't have power. You need to charge batteries. You need to get footage to where it needs to go. You were probably dealing with some new challenges altogether, but that's what really, I think, has made you resilient. But you tell me, I mean, what was the most eye-opening of that journey in itself, besides the sheer destruction? That was a Cat 5, storm.
Yeah, so very much so. It was like being in a war zone. I've been in one of those before, and it was very similar. Ultimately, we were having to cut our way in. People's homes were completely destroyed. They haven't had contact with anybody since the beginning of the storm. A lot of times we were cutting into neighborhoods and people were like, "What's going on?" We lost power. We don't have any way of knowing what's going on or anything. So it was very chaotic. Power was limited. We were running little 2-stroke generators in the back of the trucks at all times, keeping our batteries charged. Ultimately, there was some crime going on, so it was kind of dangerous. We had to have, a member of our team kind of looking out for us at all times because people were getting into some bad trouble, stealing from stores, just trying to get basic necessities or whatever. And it was just, like I said, it was just like a war zone. You didn't know what to expect or what kind of conditions or what you were going to be facing.
Yeah, well, that's what makes these drone missions never is one the same as another, in some cases, very extreme ways. Well, tell us a little bit about, some other fun projects. I know you've got a few. I know you ended up in, the advanced piloting side of FPV. That's led to some stuff. You tell us, what's been your favorite project to work on?
Oh, by far, the Delta V or the Saturn V rocket. That, to me, I'm such a aviation and space nerd. Most of my most prideful pieces of work have to deal with aviation. So whether it be the Saturn V rocket or it be the National Naval Aviation Museum here in Pensacola, getting to fly around all those historic aircraft, or it could be flying the LCS ships out there in Mobile Bay, just being kind of back into the military world and being able to fly and show off my skills is kind of like, see, y'all shouldn't have let me go.
Yep. That's right. That's right. Because now, wait, let's fast forward for a second. Marines are now making a move to be all equipped with drones.
Yeah. The saying has always been every Marine a rifleman. Now it's kind of like every Marine a drone operator now.
Yeah.
With the advancements of the drone technology in the battle space, all the way up to the Space Force back here, where, they have people that utilize drones all the time. The satellites, what is that? That is a big giant drone.
Yeah.
And you remotely control it. So they need all kinds of smart people in their ranks now.
No, absolutely. It's a changed environment, to say the least, but really cool that you were early to it at the same time and enjoying those times with the drones. But what about some of the not so fun stuff? Obviously it's always fun to reminisce on the good stuff, but were there any like challenging moments where you felt like, wow, this is really probably one of the more challenging areas that I've messed with Is it in the building sector? Was it in the pilot side? Where was it?
See, the building is always tough. When you take on your first FPV drone, learning how to solder, learning how to program, tune, and get all those settings dialed in just right to your flying style, and then also ensuring that it's not causing micro oscillations in the footage. That's like climbing Mount Everest. When you first start out, you're like, how in the world am I ever going to get up to the top of this mountain? But you keep chewing away at it and don't give up. And, eventually you see yourself at the top, looking around and enjoying the view. So
I love it. That's a beautiful way to look at it. And I know it blends with other skill set areas. Like, for example, I guess you could be a really good drone pilot, but if you're, not smooth on your turns, or you're not being respectful of what looks good on camera, you have another area of skill set to unlock. Did you find the camera side to be like an enjoyment of extra drone stuff, or was it just a whole nother box?
yeah, I grew up taking pictures. I always loved operating the cameras. Because my mind's really mechanical, and I always wanted to know how to figure how things worked, and so cameras was one of those things, and I'd always had a great appreciation for nature and, just what beauty you can find. And so the additional bonus of having these high definition cameras on these drones was just, it's like being completely free. Like I say, you're the bird and you get to find beauty and capture it. So that's, what's led up to my skill set and further pushing me into this world.
And what's your favorite kind of drone to fly?
Oh, FPV all day, every day.
Any particular size or class of FPV?
Probably 2.5 inch.
Yeah.
2.5 inch is well within the legal, usually below 250 grams. So it opens up a little bit more of the rules and regulations of where you can and cannot fly. And ultimately, they're just so fun, agile, and fast that you really can go anywhere with them and feel completely safe. You can go to a park, you can go to the beach, and it's not really overly threatening to anybody. Also, the tiny whoop size class drones, the 65 millimeter wheelbase diameters, those are probably my favorite because I don't even have to leave my front room. Right. I've got a full little drone racetrack in my house right now. So
that's so cool. Well, that's the fun part of this side of it too, is sometimes you can't tell the difference between work and play. Well, what about your favorite style of, the drone FPV flight? Is it freestyle, or you like the racing?
Yeah, I mean, freestyle is free and natural, but racing is adrenaline packed, and I love all of it. Ultimately, though, the cinematography side of FPV flying is where I really enjoy, because I've learned how to freestyle. I learned how to race. Now it's like, how do I make money?
Yeah.
How do I continue doing this as a job and progressing my skills? Because the first two was all about like rapid movements, and it can be quite jerky. And when you get to the racer, it's like, okay, now fly course and do all these maneuvers. But cinematography really brings that professionalism into it, to where, you're on a music video set or you're on a movie shoot. You've got like these once or twice opportunities to get the shot right. And then, because the adrenaline gets flowing.
Oh, I'm sure.
It's a high pressure environment.
Yeah.
Like, especially if like pyrotechnics are on the line or something, so you've only got sometimes that one shot to get the shot right. And so while I'm flying, I'm okay. But as soon as I'm done, I'm a nervous wreck. I was like, okay, guys, I'm going to need to calm down for a second, let this adrenaline wear off, and then I'll be able to, answer any questions or review footage and everything first.
Nice. Well, what's the next project in line for testing your skill set?
Let's see. I think we've got a golf shot coming up. So they're wanting me to fly and chase a golf ball. So that's going to be really neat.
Yeah.
We're going to have a professional golfer do it as safe as possible, utilizing a smaller drone set. And they want that swing and that Tom Brady shot, basically. That's got viral, 2 years ago?
Yeah, that was a
Like
cool
that.
shot. And that was the hole-in-one shot of all things on the first take.
That's incredible. Like, I still don't know how they managed to get the timing right, the shot right, and everything all in one take,
Yeah,
but they did.
yeah. Well, that's so cool. Well, what about, some of the things that you have for advice for some of the younger generation that's getting into this field as far as, where do they start? Where's the areas to focus the most on?
Definitely practice, practice, practice. On a simulator, that's the number one key. It saves so much money. And then once you do get into that physical drone, start off with the small one. Get the stick coordination, because now you're fighting environment. And it's an invisible force up there. It only thing you can do is react. You can't be proactive unless you absolutely know what those conditions are. And so once you develop how to react to those invisible forces, then start moving up in that size of drone, and get more and more comfortable. And, ultimately go from freestyle, which I think everybody kind of starts at with FPV, and then move into the racing to get those fine motor skills, and then ultimately onto your professional career, whether it be cinematography, fire, EMS, agriculture, it doesn't matter. But ultimately, it's going to take you through multiple stages of self-regulation and stress management and different things that you're going to learn through that process. Because even while I'm shaky, that only happens but after the flight. During the flight, I'm rock solid, ready to roll. It's just due to that experience over the past 15 years of just continuously going. And then don't be afraid to crash. Ultimately, if you're not pushing the boundaries and you don't crash, you're not learning. So push those boundaries, push yourself harder and harder. How do I make it around the course faster and faster? And if you crash, you crash. Sometimes turtle, get back up if you can. If it's completely down and out, that's just how racing goes sometimes.
Yeah. No, you bring up a good point too with, the simulator and the crashes. It's so much more affordable to be able to press the space bar and reset than some of these drones that are out there. Because in the beginning chapters, the drones were crazy expensive, for professional works sides. They were also the build your own, but it felt like, if you crash one of those $10,000 plus drones, it might scar you enough to walk away. So
it is a bad day. Even the $1,000 ones hurt
big time.
It's like, oh, the bigger the drone is, they're kind of easier to fly. They've got position hold, they've got radar sensors and stuff like that. But ultimately, you just got to fly mindful of what you're doing. How close are you to that building? Whether you're doing inspections or cinematography, or, just continuously keep that situational awareness about where the drone is and what's around your airspace and who's below your drone too. Because at any moment, I've even had it on one of our shoots. I was 60 feet up in the air, and all of a sudden, complete loss of power in the drone because the battery lead vibrated out of its plug holder, and that drone fell down and smacked the ground into a lot of pieces. But luckily, I wasn't over any of the vehicles. I wasn't over any people or anything, and so it was just the drone that was broken. That
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, amount of discipline that it can take to not be over people and cars and things of that nature, because these things do happen, and it's a balancing act that's probably going through your mind when you're flying of safest path, best shot, everybody is timed right, all of those things probably going through your head. But at any given moment, a failure can occur. Could be a bird strike, could be anything.
Yeah,
It happens.
birds coming, they'll try to grab your drone out, right out of the sky. Sometimes, like I said, you'll lose power, or you'll lose an IMU or something. It's almost if something doesn't go wrong in the shoot, I get really worried because there's always usually some hurdle to overcome. And if everything goes right, I get a little sketched out. I'm like, uh-oh, is the footage okay? And so I have to review the footage real quick, make sure I hit record.
Yeah.
I mean, that can happen too.
Well, give us a little insight on the world of the FPV pilot pay, because I know it can range from something like super simple, flying through a little quick house, to something where we're in a national TV commercial flying through a Dodge Ram window and out the other. What are these pay ranges in the FPV film category?
I mean, for me personally, I kept it pretty clean and simple and charged a flat hourly rate. But ultimately, you can move on up into these bigger projects. You know, sometimes it's like $1,500 a day. Sometimes it's $10,000 a day. It really depends on the project and your skill level, whether or not you can perform, and whether or not you already have the equipment and have equipment for the equipment, because that's also part of the game too. Because if you crash your drone on set and you don't have parts, you're offset. Somebody else is on. They're not going to wait on you to, hold on, I got to send it off to, the company and get it back 2 weeks later. You're on set that day, so you have to fix it that day.
So in addition to flying safely and capturing the shot properly, I got to be able to communicate and turn around with any issues that occur. What's been the little bit of a glimpse into the customer experience side? Do you show the customers the shot? Do they have you kind of give input? You do it again? Where have you found some of the strengths in working well with your clients?
I try to do exactly what they ask. Sometimes they're really well versed in what the drone's capabilities and what pilots of this style can do. Sometimes not. But ultimately, I try to give them what they want. And then when I find those little moments that I can just kind of like, hey, check this out.
Yeah.
They usually end up going with that shot.
Yeah. That's interesting, that your experience can sometimes show a shot that may not have originally been on a storyboard or just from flying around, getting the feel for the area too. So that's really cool. Well, what else is coming in the future, as far as beyond, not just your work, but the world of which you play in, the FPV arena? What are we seeing around the corner? What's next to come in the hardware space?
We're going to see more and more smart drones come out of the manufacturing. More manufacturing houses going to start opening up in America. Ultimately, our military and our law enforcement, pretty much every industry is going to be wanting drone pilots. Ultimately, if you have the manual flight skills, you're going to get a lot further in advance amongst your peers, because those manual skill sets, especially for law enforcement and military use, it's highly requested, because you can do the things that most drone pilots can't. Some drones won't even allow you to fly too close to a building, yet alone fly through the window.
Well, it's like you just said a minute ago, if something's not going wrong on a shoot with the drone, something's wrong in general. Yeah. It's funny how often technology, is great when it works, but with drones particularly, they are throwing you curveballs left and right.
And yeah, you got to be adaptable to every situation. So whether it be environmental winds, all of a sudden a squall line could be coming in, like, the Saturn V shot. We were set to go at this time, but all of a sudden this huge squall line come moving in the weather pattern, and we had to get rolling really fast. So everything got rushed really quick, and then that played havoc on my nerves and was able, but once I got goggles down and I said, okay, here we go. My piloting and all of my training kicked back in, and I was able to get the shot. So
yeah, I forgot about that storm. So just to give the audience a little bit more insight on that particular shoot, you were off to the side, set up, goggled up, ready to fly. Give us kind of that play-by-play of how that went, and was there talent involved? What all was that?
So about 30 minutes before that shoot, it was almost windless. It was like a breeze. I was like, okay, this is perfect because if there's wind, it could throw you off of your dive. It can, push you around up there. Uh, and everything was doing just fine. I couldn't really gauge the wind because there was no flags out anywhere around that campus at the time. So I didn't know which particular direction the wind was going to be coming from once the squall line kind of kicked in. So ultimately, I had to go and give a few practice dives to understand what was going up, 400 feet up in the air, and then at the same time, what kind of Venturi, like wind turbulence effect is that rocket giving off too? So ultimately, it took me like 4 or 5 good solid dives to realize that I had to be off the rocket about 40 to 50 feet to the right of it in order to start my roll, because if I tried to just flip over right at the top of the rocket, I would end up 40 to 50 feet off to the left of the rocket. But once I got that line dialed in and kept dropping and dropping, and the director was working on his timing, getting everybody to move in one smooth sequence. It was very challenging, but ultimately it was, repetition. And then, finally I had 1 or 2 dives where everybody's like, that's the one.
Yeah.
It was just inches off the rocket, come down, see the family. We were flying off to the side of the family for safety because ultimately I'm coming down a Mach holy,
Yeah.
really fast coming down that dive. And then I have to J-hook, kind of pull out and then get smooth at a tree line area to see this family walking down the hill.
Yeah.
And I hit the trees a few times. The actors were kind of scared and ducking, in some of the takes. But once we all got used to what was happening and what needed to go on, it made magic.
Yeah, no, it certainly did. And all while an approaching squall line is on the way.
Yeah, I think that battery, as soon as I unplugged, it started raining.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it was just in the very nick of time.
Yeah. No, that is so cool. Well, any other just exciting stories while we're on story time side of things? Because, people love hearing some of these more in the behind the scenes sides of it all. And I know that you've been on some exciting ones. That one's probably one of the more spicy stories, but any others come to mind, or any other just passion ones that you really enjoyed?
I flew through an F-18 Hornet
Oh yeah.
from intake through the afterburner, and I was the first person to ever do that through an actual jet. And it was kind of my own silly way of like, hey, this is exactly where a drone shouldn't go, but I'm getting to go anyway.
That's awesome.
That's why I really wanted to do that. And I got to do that in the restoration hangar of the National Naval Aviation Museum for some project work, for some documentaries and stuff. So that was really fun.
That is. Wow. Well, Chantry, you've certainly been on some projects to keep us all wanting to do more, to say the least. But any other just little tidbits as we sign off here, and want to, give any other insights of how else to get involved with drones and how else to kind of just tear down that barrier a little bit?
Yeah, don't stop learning, ever. Never stop. Learning is power. Knowledge is power. It's been a saying for a long time. And it's true. The more you learn about drones and what their capabilities are, from orthomosaic mapping to LiDAR to drone delivery, everything, all the way up into the satellites, it's limitless. And you have a career available in this technology, and it's up to you how far you actually go.
Couldn't agree more. And super thankful to have you on the show. And guess that's another episode of Aerial Perspectives. Thanks for tuning in.